Welcome back to the Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy, healthy start on this very sunny Sunday. No, not Sunday. It's Saturday. It's Saturday. Hey, have a happy Saturday in your life. Got to stop even saying that as well because it's always been sunny recently. So it's like there's no change, man. No change of behavior, of which plenty to talk about in Bitcoin for the short-term timeframes, change of behaviors, and also what Friday's closure kind of means for the next week to come. As always, over the weekend, typically going to be low volatility, sort of ranging periods essentially. But I suppose there are a few things to be following up right here, of which we'll get into that right in a second. I should let you know before that we do have our sale going on of the 4-year anniversary. Insane, like absolutely insane. This place has lasted 4 years to just begin with, but I should let you know that that's going on right now for the next little bit less than 2 days, it does look like. And as with any one of these programs, don't FOMO into them. Make sure that you watch the promotional videos as they are going to explain who they're for and who they're not for, so that you can make a good decision for yourself, whether this is relevant towards your interests or not. And then perhaps at the end of this video, we'll swing back around here, maybe put a few more words on that. On top of that, as far as the other underlying market dynamics go, I think that we're also going to swing back around here on the Krown Chain application. There is one big, very, very relevant thing that I want to get into right off the bat, which is actually the global open interest. You can see that that is now starting to nicely lift upwards and onwards, of which we are at about 11.67 billion. The reason why I'm putting a bit of focus on this right now is because I do want to have a bit of an alert if and when this does get a lot closer to about 14 billion. Obviously, that's not like super relevant for where it's currently postured at, but as it does go up and up, well, presumably, I would have a keen interest on that area or anywhere above that region, because that has been in the past where we've kind of reached that critical mass with leverage positions being a little bit too one-sided, let's say, and having typically catastrophic downside price action from there. So I put in alerts for these regions above 13 billion, actually, as I do want to know a little bit earlier than that, not to mean that it's like as soon as it gets to 14, immediately come down. In fact, no, that's very unlikely to happen. But that's at the point where I look at that as like, okay, I'm looking for triggers now for potentially the next major pullback. And typically the higher that we do see that number get, the bigger the pullback will very likely be. So it's on my radar. It's not necessarily relevant like at this exact moment. Yeah, hourly feeds showing the same thing as well. So I think we'll come back into this a little bit later. Yeah, let's go over here into the short-term timeframes. I want to follow up on this. Yesterday, we did say that a pullback down somewhere around the blue box territory was likely, plus a bounce into a higher low, which is what we have essentially gotten on our very short-term timeframes, like the 4-hour. Beautiful right there. And then we did say a break of about 41.5, and targeted region would be the 9th of March highs right here, which I've gotten pretty damn close to. Not necessarily 42.6, but about 42.4 it looks like, or 42.350. So Krown's wrong, fuck him, and I hope that he dies. Anyways, in this case, because it is a weekend, it's a fucking terrible thing to say, man. It's like these are things that you can say about yourself, but you can never say about other people, because then it's like, hey man, I think you should go to like jail or something, actually. Anyways, in this case, on the short-term timeframes, do I think that we could play out a bit more of a range before another resolution for the medium-term timeframe range in this case? Yeah, absolutely. Higher lows on the hourly, looking somewhere around about 41,000. If we do get another pullback in between here, should also be known that hourly BBWP is very, very low right now. I kind of do expect this to be a little bit more on the lower side, especially over the weekend. If we go over here to the 4-hour, you'll also notice that the 4-hour BBWP, while it did get that expansion off of the pullback into a higher low yesterday, I'm not really seeing anything that's like super interesting here just yet. I want to see it get above 50 percentile alongside a range break. In this case, that would be above about 42.5, be getting targets up to the major range highs. That would be about $44,500 to $45,000 actually. Or, in the event that we do see a break south, I'd say same thing as yesterday, just below $40,000 is kind of my line in the sand for this. And at that point, I would be looking for this one to come back down, retest around $37,000 lows. Probably sets it up for a major move lower, actually. Anyways, in this case, I do still favor the upside, mostly because of this chart over here. I don't want to go too deep into the long-term analysis on this asset, simply because we'll save that perhaps for tomorrow if it is relevant. But in this case, we did see extreme lows on 5-day BBWP. The similar lows that we've seen in the past year or year and a half now have produced, on average, about a 45% gain, which we'll measure out together soon enough. But basically, anytime that BBWP has gotten down around this region, and then more importantly, flip back up above the moving average, those have been some pretty, momentous moves, if you will, or volatile, and then the, and then the momentum from those moves typically carries things onwards and forwards. So I'm looking for this to very likely have a resolution maybe around end of month here, as we did say, expect boringness this past week and probably a little bit more of this week to come, and then around the end of this month, which I guess actually we will kind of be yeah, I guess maybe around like midpoint next week, probably do start to expect some greater moves. But at that point, I would probably be looking for, the next more major etchings of this move. Anyways, these low volatility periods, I've also lined up on the chart, obviously, measure them out. You can see them for yourself right here, which we do see the first one. And again, volatility is direction neutral. So, these both come to the upside and the downside. In fact, both it's 2 and 2 right here. The first one in May of last year did produce about almost a 50% move to the downside over 45 days. Beautiful. Same thing on the next move to the upside, actually. 42.29% over about 35 days. And actually the exact same days taken on the next upside move, just a little bit after that one. Another 35 days for 46.75% gainer to the upside starting in October. And then, of course, the most recent one was in December on that last meltdown, about 42.17% to the downside over 50 days. So making an average out of these, about 45%, let's say, over the course of 40-ish days. And so what I've also done here is I've gone ahead and I've both added and subtracted what about 45% on the current price action would look like to the upside. That's your 56,000-ish territory right here. To the downside, more like 23-ish thousand, which we can support with some more technicals as well. But in this case, I do like the history of this. And the reason why I'm having an upside bias for the time being, and we'll talk about invalidation soon enough, is matching it up with 5-day stochastic momentum. You actually have noticed, again, with these green vertical bars correlating with those low volatility regions, that basically the direction of the 5-day stochastic has been very accurate in getting the direction of that move. Obviously, this first one over here to the downside and also getting out of the bullish control zone, two very important things. Same thing on this side, except to the opposite, getting out of the bearish control zone and also upside angled. Same thing over here to the upside with crossing to the upside and freshly holding into the bullish control zone. Very important things as well. And then more recently, December, obviously cracking back down below the bullish control zone, very similar to this past iteration over here, actually. And then more recently, as we do have extremely low volatility, not expanding just yet though, still technically in a contraction phase, we do see 5-day stochastic momentum is headed to the upside and has worked its way out of the bearish control zone. So I think that does kind of hold my own biases steady here. As far as the short-term timeframes go, just looking for a bit of an ebb and flow. If I'm looking for a pullback, I'm looking somewhere around about $41,000. If I'm looking for another try to the upside, probably just retest yesterday's higher. So I would not call continuation again on this price action to $44.5 to $45,000 ish. Until we do get a nice healthy closure above basically this 42,600-ish region, let's say. At that point, I do look for the short-term timeframes to bleed into the medium and higher-term timeframes and start to test back up around here. The reason why that is actually rather relevant is because if we do start to align this with a higher-term timeframe look, that would really start to formulate this last couple months of price action as, well, a series of higher lows, same highs. What does that essentially construct? A nice ascending triangle, which is a reaccumulation formation. And more importantly, it does have a technical target. Guess where the technical target is? Right around $56,000. Also in line with 3.272. Very good confluence with the prior iterations of that low volatility on the 5-day realm was kind of, suggesting for price action. So I thought that was rather interesting. Of course, it's going to be stops along the way, obviously. But, if that were to happen, again, that is confirming a validation above $44,500 on a daily at minimum, or a 4-hour above about $45,000. If one of those two things happens, then yeah, that would essentially be the next sort of major leg that I'm looking for within the course, maybe for the next just over a month and a couple weeks. It does look like on average. And again, validation above $44,500 minimum. Until then, it's just, it's an idea that combined with the other underlying market dynamics and other technicals that we're looking at, that does have some merit to it. But until that actually does bust on through the top side of this whole range, well, it's just an idea, just that. And of course, the downside needs to be spoken about as well. What would essentially invalidate this current bias on price action over here? This one's actually rather simple. What would invalidate this? Well, what would invalidate it? Coming back down specifically below about 39,900 would certainly do it for me as far as a short-term setup, as that would be a break of range and also another lower high being confirmed right around $42,000. Let me actually pull up the chart that we were working off of. Yep, right here. So that's kind of my line in the sand. As you can see, the lower end of this blue box, about 39,900 actually. At that point, I do look for another retest down around about 37.5 to 37 even. very likely a bounce there, but probably just that. At that point, I have to bring out the bearish charts. And the bearish charts, what do they look like? Well, they look essentially like this, in the sense that anytime we've gotten a monthly MACD cross the downside, plus a break and closure below the white 20 simple on the chart right here. So the MACD is represented by the green vertical bars, and the 20 simple represented by the white moving average. That has essentially, well, not essentially, it has always produced in the past, all 3 iterations, which is not too many, but does make a trend. A move down to the green 55 exponential moving average. Guess where that is right now? If you guessed around 23 to 24,000, you'd be right. So, it does kind of align with that historical read off of volatility as well. Anyways, as far as the lower term timeframes go, I feel like we could maybe do a little bit more with them over here. Let me just double check. Okay, let's bring up stochastic momentum over here. And, what is more likely to happen over the weekend? Is it more likely to pull back into another higher low or continue from here or fail? Well, again, I don't consider failure until Bitcoin comes back down on a closing basis below about 39.9. Until then, all pullbacks are essentially another higher low from what I look at, with $41,000 being a specific area to be aware of. But as far as the lower term timeframes go, we do see 6-hour stochastic momentum is starting to get way up there, which is okay. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but it does make it easier for it to turn down, obviously. So if you do see any sort of a closure below 41,600, that's going to start to turn the tides in a pullback first motion. Full hour is going to be showing about 41.7s, kind of where Bitcoin's at right now. This one's actually closing, it's about 3 hours and 7 minutes, so not anytime soon. But you can imagine that, if both of them start to head in the same direction, the probabilities of pulling back first are going to be greatly enhanced rather than continuation, which is what I think is a little more likely to be quite honest with you. In fact, the past few days of analysis have been very similar to each other, but just with different numbers. Like a little bit of a pullback first, look for a higher low, and probably continuation to the next relevant region. 3 hour is going to show downside momentum with any sort of a closure below 41,850. Bi-hourly is going to be turning up above 41,850. So 41.8, and hourly is going to be nosediving below about 42,130. So, we do see a lot of the lower term timeframes suggesting pullback first is a little more likely. Again, pullback targets on the lower term timeframes can very easily come down to about 41,000 even. I would be looking for a short term bounce there, not to say that that's destined to be the higher low. However, if things do really start to come down a lot more significantly below about 39.9, that's where I say this is no longer a pullback. This is a reversal, another lower high, and likely getting ready for new lows if that would happen. But for right now, I'm just looking for a range over the weekend. If it can hold a range, especially above about 41 coming into Monday, that's when I look for this market to try another move to the upside. And, again, a break of that last 42.5, 42.6 high, and I'm looking for another couple $1,000 up, maybe a little bit more than that. Obviously, that puts Bitcoin around the top side of the long-term, higher-term timeframe resolution, which, as we said, has several technical targets much higher. 13 minutes in this video. Should I even go over the weekly at this point? Maybe we should for CME, actually. CME, did it confirm a drive of hidden bullish evidence off the low? No, it did not. It did do something of interest here, though, I should say, in the sense that it did get back above the exponential, but we actually didn't confirm that next drive of hidden bullish evidence. It's very close, very, very close in this case, but not quite there. I would say just offhand, though, that this is, this is a decent closure. Do you want to see it trade actually in the next couple weeks above about 44,000 bucks? We kind of do actually expect that if upside is going to continue, it very likely continues from here. No major pullbacks, especially below about 40,000 bucks. Otherwise, that is going to be a good indication that the downside is significantly more likely. In this case, Bulas have the ball in their court for a few things that we spoke about earlier, and also this one right here would be an obvious one. Any sort of a weekly closure above 43 and a half to 44 would very likely do it for me. Not just confirming that next drive of hidden bullish evidence, but also another higher low on the weekly as well. I feel like there's something I'm missing today, though. 5-day. All right. Let's see. 2-day. 2-day looks decent here for another move. I do think that this one's going to test somewhere around about 44 and a half to 45, probably at some point next week, to be quite honest with you. Daily. Yeah, I'm not really getting too much off of this as well. It is still lower highs. I mean, it is still lower highs, but we do see some good things going on right here as well. So namely, actually, the daily jewel on CME did turn cyan a few ticks ago and has DMI support. I want to see volatility expand from there. If that starts to happen, it's probably a front runnable signal, to be quite honest with you. And I'm speaking a little bit more off the cuff here, simply because I understand that people who are like watching this sort of content during, especially these times, which are, certainly more on the boring times where very few people are paying attention, I feel like I can speak more directly to you because you probably make like a more intense effort to understand, and you probably understand like the nuance. Not to say that other people aren't capable of it, but when people are just kind of attracted to the hype, or the hype times during these markets, they're probably just not as nuanced, naturally. Their interests probably lie in other places. Right on. Anyways, to each their own. There was one last thing as far as the underlying market dynamics that I should point out here. A couple things, actually. Fear and greed index, obviously still within the extremely fearful zone. This is alongside Bitcoin, seemingly putting in a pretty significant higher low. It's not there just yet, but getting quite closer. And then the funny rates are actually negative on the daily. On the hourly, they're even a little bit more negative than that. These are extremely small numbers right here, so it's hard to make much out of them, but it obviously does, imply that the upside's maybe a little bit more likely. So kind of like wrapping my thoughts up, short-term timeframes, bit of an ebb and flow here, probably does pull back, maybe later today or at the end of this weekend. But I am just looking for higher lows there until proven otherwise, below 40,000, or basically below 40,000 or 39,900. It's where things start to fall apart, in my opinion. Until then, looking for sideways and probably another try to the upside, with the next short-term range resolution above about 42,600, with targets up towards 44, 45, basically. Hopefully that was in some way helpful. I'm gonna be sounding off now. Take care. Shit, we forgot to go over the damn programs. Look, these two programs, especially right here, the TA program and the options program, require a lot of time investment, and a big financial investment as well. So understand that if you don't have the time investment, it's probably not gonna be a good fit. I feel like I just need to say that. Everything else, you can just watch the promotional videos for it. They'll explain, basically the details of it, and then you can make a decision for yourself. Other than that, I'm gonna be sounding off now. Take care and much love, and see you hopefully soon.